If you gave the country guys food in the dressing room, they thought, man, this is it. That's cool. That's cool. That's why I went to country music, because the country guys were not into the drugs. They drank, but they were not into the drugs and all of that. And so it was refreshing. And I was with Merle Haggard, for 10 years. Everywhere he went, I went for 10 years. He's a genius, absolute genius. And before I die, I want to produce his movie, and I hope I do, because here's a man that was born in a boxcar in Bakersfield, California. He escaped from 13 institutions by the time he was 18. He spent 2 years and 9 months in San Quentin. He lived in every hobo jungle in the country, and in 1967 became Entertainer of the Year. It makes Johnny Cash's story look like Mary Poppins. It really does.
And you have a script?
I have a script, but more importantly, I don't. You know, you can go out and do someone's story, but Hag's still alive, and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to him. I want him involved in it. You know, we'll see what happens.
What about Barbara Mandrell, Dolly Parton?
Barbara Mandrell, I managed Barbara and Dolly at the same time, and that was not difficult to do because they were so totally different. Dolly was a writer. She was a performer, but she was a writer. Barbara couldn't write a note, but she was a great performer. She played several instruments and everything. And so, you know, I took their careers and I tried to move them forward. I had a problem, though. Dolly came to me, and see, the guys in Nashville, it's a good old boy society there, and they didn't want these Hollywood guys coming out. After I signed Haggard to an exclusive contract, I would go back to Nashville and stay at the Hilton Hotel at the airport, and I'd get a call in the middle of the night, get your Hollywood ass out of here. They didn't want me around. So I went to Porter Wagoner. Porter Wagoner had a television show, and he had this little girl named Dolly Parton. He was paying her $500 a week on his show. So I went to Porter, and his agent was a fellow named Tandy Rice, a Southern gentleman. And I said, I'd like to buy some Porter dates. He said, well, Bob, how many dates would you like to have? You know, Porter's schedule is very, very heavy. I said, I'd like to buy 100 dates. He says, we can arrange that right away. So I bought 100 dates on Porter Wagoner, $3,500 flat, which included Dolly Parton. And here again, that Hollywood guy came to Nashville and was raiding, you know. So on the second date that I did with Porter Wagoner, the only time I could talk to Dolly was when Porter was on the stage. Okay, so it would be Porter, then Dolly, and then the two of them would go on together. And so the second date, Porter's on stage, and Dolly comes into the dressing room. She says, I'm going to leave Porter. I said, what? You know, I just $350,000 down the tube. She says, yeah, I'm going to leave Porter, and I would like for you to manage me. I thought, oh, my God. Didn't know what to do. But she left Porter, and I did start managing her, and I thought I did a pretty good job. But the boys in Nashville really came down on her about having a West Coast manager. And so she said, I just can't handle it anymore. I said, okay. So about a year later, I get a call from her, and we meet at the Hilton Hotel, the Beverly Hilton Hotel. And she said, I would like for you to manage me again. And I said, oh, boy. So I said, Dolly, I'm not sure. You know, I need to talk to my wife about that. And I went home and we talked about it and realized that it wasn't a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. So I came back the next day and I said, no. I said, but if I were you, I would go to Catskill and Cleary. And so I sent them to Sandy Gallen. And I guess Sandy still represents Dolly. You know, and he's done a marvelous job.
In picking up, the first time you were with Dolly, does that mean you had to drop Porter?
Well, Porter was mad at me, yeah, and without Dolly, Porter wasn't worth much to me because, you know, he did have the television show, but Dolly was the combination. It's an interesting thing about country music. Back in those days, females did not do well in concert. Loretta Lynn did not do well without Conway Twitty, and Tammy Wynette did not do well without George Jones. It was difficult to sell a female act back then, certainly not now, good God, but it was then, and so what I did with Dolly is I put her on the Haggard tour, you know, and she was making more money there than she'd made in her life, you know, on the Merle Haggard tour. Yeah, I lost Porter, and Porter was very mad at me. But we kissed and made up several years later. I was doing a show called Primetime Country out of Nashville, and he came on the show, and we just laughed about it.
And this initial animosity towards you, these phone calls, they were anonymous?
Yeah, but I knew where they were coming from. You see, the country music guys, they were used to taking 10 acts and putting them on a show at a high school auditorium, paying them 30 cents, not having any food, not having any. I came into country music. I gave the acts limos. I had food backstage. Heck, I thought you're supposed to do that. I had to do that in rock and roll. So I really changed the way country music promoters had to work with acts, and it made them mad.